Start. Hi everyone. This is me again, Niti. I have very exciting person with me, Harry. And if somebody who doesn't know me, I am the founder of MedML. MedML is the very first underwriting platform created by the actuaries for the underwriters. I am an actuary, so I played a critical role in creating the product. But I'm being humble here, not not exaggerating much. So yeah, so it's not about me today. It's about Harry. We would like to talk with Harry on the underwriting challenges that he has seen in the North American insurance world. And we always blabber that North America is extremely developed. So let's see from his words what he thinks on the underwriting front. And I will just give you a little bit brief introduction of Harry. So Harry is a senior analyst in Celent. Celent's North American insurance team. So he's very specific on the North American part. He is in Minnesota. So, and anybody who wants to reach out to him, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn. And he has immense amount of experience in product management, in property and casualty, and with regards to the insurance industry. So I'll be quiet now. So here you for you, Harry.
Thank you for the kind introduction. And I don't think any humility is necessary to develop an underwriting workbench from an actuarial perspective. I think is an impressive accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you. We're still growing. I
Yeah.
still keep shouting at the team. I don't like this button.
So work in progress, but that's good. It's good to take that kind of agile approach to it. So you sent a couple of talking points ahead of the conversation, one of which was around kind of the challenges about the current underwriting. Challenges current underwriters are seeing, especially in the commercial insurance space. And to me, the number one challenge that we see commercial lines insurers having is around just the data. The data environment has really exploded over the last 5 or so years. There's lots of new data sources that are available. So for example, aerial imagery, third-party predictive scoring models, new types of property data. There are third-party data vendors who will scrape permitting or inspection reports, or even something like a Yelp review of a restaurant to try to give underwriters more tools for making their decisions. And that creates a lot of knock-on effects, I think, for underwriters. So for example, just what data is out there, what products exist, and what can be done with the data. Secondly, the quality of that data. So is it sufficient, accurate, etc. Generally speaking, what we see in the marketplace and what we hear from commercial lines insurers is that some of that data is fit for purpose, less so than in personal lines. But in other areas, they wish they could have more or higher quality data. Then if you found good data, how do you get that data? So accessing it, how do I pull it into the underwriting process and make it accessible to the underwriter at the time that they need to act on it to make a decision? And finally, that sort of leads to the last point, managing that data. So now that you have it, how can it be made meaningful or parsable? How can it be useful in real time? So those are kind of a lot of different areas we see around data. We see a lot of interest in tools like underwriting workbenches. So I'm sure, as you know, Niti, analyzing loss runs, prior losses, financial conditions, exposures, controls, reinsurance. We could keep going on for a while here.
Yeah.
It's really about giving underwriters better decisioning tools and more support for the tasks that are not usually supported by the core system. And beyond all of that, there's a lot of margin pressures for commercial lines insurers. It's a hard market, especially around property insurance in catastrophe areas, so wildfire areas, hurricane areas. Commercial auto has been underwater for a lot of insurers for the last several years. And then against that, there's also new entrants like insurtechs, or new solution providers making new solutions available. So it's a rapidly evolving space, and insurers are under a lot of price pressure, which creates this incentive to use the tools that they have available, these data tools, and let their underwriters, work more effectively, more quickly, make better decisions and faster, to capitalize on some of this opportunity.
Well, I do agree. So regarding the data front that you just said, I have felt when, basically I'll give you one example. So where underwriters receive data from the brokers, and sometimes it's overinflated, it's extremely high amount. So it is under the hands of the underwriter. They have to evaluate, they have to make sure that the data that has been given to them is making some sense. It's not inflated, because using that data, they are doing the premium predictions and they're doing the pricing. So data is obviously a very important factor. In addition to that, there are certain products, which product innovations, where there is no data, or there is fragmented data. And I think there also us, what we call it in our actuarial terminology is proxy data, that we use, which is a similar type of a data or a similar type of a product which is already there in the market, and then using that particular data as a benchmark to launch a new product. So again, there as well. So definitely data is the, like I say, if I have to cook something, and if I don't put salt into it, so it's the same thing. The data is like that. So if I don't put data without data analytics is nothing. So it's like that taste without a favorite dish without salt. So
Sure,
it's
sure. I like the analogy, and to extend it, you may know all of the pieces of data that you should be considering, or you may have a good idea. If you're looking up a recipe online, for example, that may give you an idea of the sorts of things you might need to use, onion, carrots, tomatoes. But to your point about analyzing the data or checking whether it's overinflated, if you use 7 tomatoes and 2 carrots, you're going to wind up with a salad that tastes a little bit off. It's not exactly going to get you exactly where you need to go. So I think it's a great analogy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to basically, so we touch base about the main challenges. So mainly you did emphasize on the data management and the data accuracy, but apart from that, as an expert in insurance, what do you think that is currently the problem with the underwriting system? What are the main challenges that the underwriters feel, so that there is a need for some kind of a disturbance, some kind of shaking up people and saying that, guys, you can't keep continuing doing like this?
I think that so I mentioned related to just managing the quantity of data that's available. So that's a huge part, and making it actionable at the time the underwriter needs it. Again, I think that's really the critical bit. Some of these core systems, especially ones that were, designed a while back or may rely on older technology, they just don't have the capacity to present the data elements to the underwriter in a usable format. So that may require the underwriter to go into a separate screen. They may have a separate, browser-based access system for some of this third-party property data. They may have to, manually go into a widget to get aerial imagery. So that's one limitation. Now, more modern cloud-based core systems are more flexible, and some of them even do pull in some preliminary analytics information. For that, I think it's then becomes an integration challenge. So how much of this should live, how do we integrate all this data and make it accessible? But then also, what properly lives within the the core policy admin system. It's, great for issuing a policy. It's great as serving as a system of record. Is it really giving the underwriter all the tools they need to manage all elements of that risk? And is it flexible enough to find and incorporate new sources of data as those become available? I think that's a real reason why folks are kind of looking outside what's usually been available in a core policy admin system and into some of these underwriting workbench tools.
I agree. Because and I don't know. I mean, for everyone who doesn't know what the life of underwriter, how does it look like? So they are constantly on clock. So they have the targets, and it is we do talk about the claims adjudicators, but trust me, the underwriters are immensely pressurized because they have deadlines towards the tender, and if they don't submit on time, they may lose out on the revenue, and that's like kind of like extremely hitting the channel of the insurance companies, gross revenue and profits, etc. So, and also then at that speed, they need to take decisions, critical decisions like pricing. So if their focus is on collecting the data together to the point where they can understand, then it's not a good use of their time, because their time needs to be on accessing whether the premium that has come, a base premium from whatever software or etc., from even from a small excel, from there it should be the starting point for the underwriters. And you're rightly saying that currently most of the underwriters, whether life, property and casualty, any line of business we look into, or reinsurance or insurance companies, their main focus is like gathering the data and putting it into a software, maybe into an excel, maybe, no matter how what is the maturity level of their systems, but not on from that point where they get the premium and then they start thinking, okay, now what should we do as a scenario testing or a contingency analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so to your point, there's kind of that initial up or down decision of, are we going to
Yeah.
write this business at all? Is this anywhere within our risk tolerance? And then once you've got that answered and you've decided to actually work the file, then it's, okay, how many different things do I need to take into account? And one thing that you mentioned that I think I certainly haven't touched on before, but I think is worth just underlining is, you mentioned the labor intensive process around collecting all of this in the first place. Do I have the tools I need to start making this decision? Is this application in good order? What came in through the portal, but what came in from the broker in a supplementary email where they said, hey, by the way, I couldn't figure out how to attach this loss run history, or couldn't figure out how to attach this inspection report. Now the underwriters looking in Outlook, they're looking from the extract they've got from the portal. If the information's, in a non-structured format, say they've got like a PDF or a photo of a document, can the system use some sort of OCR or RPA capability to extract that and digitize it so that it's actually showing up in the policy system or the underwriter workbench for the underwriter? So, to your point, even getting to step one that's a big lift.
Yeah, you're right. And I'll just highlight there. So underwriter's job is not, like you rightly said, it's their job is not only to price, their job is to also communicate to the brokers and to and fro. So a lot of time what I have felt is that the underwriter's main challenge is not to give or submit a tender. Yeah, that is definitely there, but not the main. The other point is when the group or the corporate asks for changes, when the broker asks for changes, then they have to maintain pricing consistency. So, and also they have to communicate via Outlook, like you're rightly saying. And let's say that conversion doesn't happen, so they have to look into the mails of history, 3 years, 4 years history, or let's say back, and because from the competition now it is happening, and that group wants the insurance company's policy, and it did not convert last time when they quoted, so they want to make sure that their pricing did not change a lot, or need, because every time they have to justify. So I do agree. And then the second portion is like, first the quotation and then the policy issuance. So creating those documents, etc. A lot of times they are manual.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the point that you made about, what exceptions have been historically made to win this business? Where did we maybe price things a little lower than we'd love to see it, but it's still within our margins. We still think it can be a profitable account. I was just talking to an insurer a couple weeks ago where those kinds of notes live in imaging files. And every time a modification is made to the policy, it's appended in another PDF within that imaging file. And so renewal becomes a huge issue. Renewal, which should be, to your point, an opportunity to advance the relationship and really
It should be
demonstrate the
automatic.
value. Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah.
should be, not we've got to learn about your business again, but hey, how has your year been? How are you doing?
Yeah.
And that insurer, the underwriters have to do this laborious kind of archaeological process of going through these chains of PDF documents to figure out what happened and when. And you can imagine the kind of friction that pops up if, say I leave the company and you take over the account and I didn't document some exception that I made 3 years ago. And now that account's coming back and saying, hey, what's the matter? Like, we had this great relationship, I thought, and now you're treating me like a stranger. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree to that. So I think we touched base into the points where I think it's very clearly evident that uh, the technology is needed, innovation
Mhm.
is needed, and insurtechs with the power of AI is needed, so that so that the underwriters feel a seamless, path. So that, if I'm not wrong, did you agree with that? If I think so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'll say, and this might be jumping ahead of the conversation a little bit. I Yeah, I think underwriting is this area where there's always going to be a need for human expertise. And, to the point that you were making, it's still a relationships business and those relationships matter. But any time that we can save an underwriter on, spending less time collecting those documents, making sure they're in good order, manually rekeying information that the system couldn't ingest, that's higher value time that they could be spending on stuff like really making sure they're making the correct decisions with all the information they need available, or just advancing those relationships or prospecting for new business. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree. This is an area where technology can help, and I think can help a lot.
No, I do agree. And in our previous podcast, also, we highlighted that fact that, a machine cannot run on its own. And there are people who are like walking models because they have like decade of experience, 20 years of experience, or maybe 30 years of experience in the insurance. And those people knowledge, we were highlighting that as a matter of concern, that when they retire, that knowledge will just go away. That legacy will just go away. So that knowledge needs to be fed into the AI models,
Mhm.
those whatever we can. And then a collaboration needs to be done with the AI and the human intelligence, with the main aim to fasten the process, so to
Mhm.
fasten the underwriting. That is, even we highlighted that earlier in our podcast. That's true.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. It's not meant to obsolete the experienced underwriter. And right now, especially, I think these generative AI tools are at a spot where they're best at helping experts do things they're really good at than they are at helping novices um, rise to an expert level. But to your point, a lot of insurance companies, either on the tech side, within their IT organization, or within their underwriting side, on the business side, a lot of insurance companies are conscious of the fact, to the exact point that you were making, that some of their workforce is getting older and there's lots of institutional knowledge that exists within their key employees. And it's, the insurance company needs to make sure that knowledge is stewarded responsibly, and so, like you say, feeding it into the AI models, helping your best underwriters train the tools, and then that just cuts down on the time that the next generation has to spend, relearning these 25 or 30 years of experience. And I think using your best employees to train those new training tools is a great application for what some of these, Gen AI tools can do kind of in the next wave of innovation. So I guess I'd say, you know, Right now, we see a lot of activity around kind of managing this data, ingesting applications, summarizing documents. But I think the next step is going to be to use some of these AIs as training tools or as expert co-pilots who can help the underwriter do their everyday job. So that's an exciting, I think, kind of next application.
Yeah. So now I will just come to the my favorite question that I always ask. So what is the what is a real life example that you have ever seen in your career that where the underwriter has really struggled and you felt that, oh my God, this is like too overwhelming. Are we back in the old age? Why is it like that? Like like beating your head and being so frustrated about.
Well, certainly there's that carrier I mentioned, and I'm not going to name any names on the podcast. And the issue there is not to say that that carrier was doing such a bad job. They were creating good products and giving good service to their distribution partners, but giving good service to their distribution partners was reliant on massive amounts of manual effort from the underwriting staff. And another good example is there are certain very specific rules and regulations that insurers have to abide by. So on the life insurance side, for example, in certain states, if someone's going to get a life insurance benefit or an annuity benefit or a disability benefit, it's the insurer's responsibility to check that that person doesn't have outstanding child support payments. That's not a rule that legacy systems track very well, and consequently, it's down to an individual underwriter to remember manually every single time to go do that, or to create some sort of like really cumbersome workaround. So, you go into these insurance companies and you talk to some of these underwriters, and it's just, people. I've had underwriters say to me directly, I feel like I spend 80% of my day on that tasks that don't add any value. It's rekeying information. It's going through these systems to find the historical record of how this policy has been managed in the past. And, we kind of touched on earlier that insofar as underwriting is partly about supporting those business relationships, that's where the time is really valuable. That's where the insurer can be working with their account, looping in loss control and saying, here are so many ways that like we can make your employees safer, we'll help you, work better. And that's not a product. Or I guess I should say, it goes beyond the idea of insurance as a product that serves to indemnify risk. So it's not just we'll help you out if something bad goes wrong. Now it's we're your partner. We want to make sure we're helping protect you and make you safer so that claims are less likely to happen and your employees are, working better and happier. That's a real alliance. It's a real partnership. And I think that's, kind of where we could be if we weren't spending so much time making sure applications are in good order and rekeying information into systems. And that's the sort of thing that excites me. I've
Yeah.
got some examples on the other side where it's things that we've
Go
seen
ahead.
carriers positively do to make their underwriters' lives easier. But I want to stop because I just talked for a really long time.
Okay. No, you can go ahead. But okay, so that really summarizes the need of the high time, I would say, for the innovation. Now, my this is the last question that I have, and I always ask this because I want to see kind of like a validation from the users or the experts. So, how do you think that when you go to the conferences or when you meet people like us who are trying to bring in the change, how we are doing as a insurtech founders or small startups as a task?
I would say how you're doing as insurtech startups and in terms of meeting the task. I would say overall a good job. I think one thing that I've seen that distinguishes kind of more successful insurtechs from less successful insurtechs is real deep knowledge of the insurance space. I think for some folks who look at insurance from the outside, it can look like a relatively simple industry. And especially even if you study a lot of insurers, it kind of feels at a high level like they're all doing the same thing. But at a lower level, when you get into the
Yeah.
nitty gritty around the underwriting, everyone's got their own particular flavor of doing it. And having an insurtech, where founders are coming from a space, like an actuarial space where they really understand the process, that sets them up for success because they're creating tools with the knowledge of what people really need to solve their problems. So,
You're right.
yeah.
You're
So I
right.
think,
Sorry, I'm cutting you, but
no,
one
go
thought
ahead, go
before I
ahead.
forget. A lot of time, people, my team members or somewhere or the other, people say that, oh my God, if we will publish this on LinkedIn, maybe somebody will copy or anything. I was like, hell no, nobody can copy. Even if even after let's say 3-4 months, I can understand my code, the code I have written. It's so complicated. I do agree to that. And everybody has their own, like you rightly said, everybody has their own way of doing it. So even if two startups which are trying to solve the same problem, and everybody will have their own flavor to it, and I do agree to that. I definitely agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's, again, I'll say, it's a big difference when an insurtech is being led by folks who really understand the process. And I guess to put in a quick plug for Celent tools, we've got on our website a Gen AI showcase where vendors can put up short demonstration videos of how their solutions leverage Gen AI to solve insurance problems. And again, these are solutions where the folks who design them understand insurance processes. So, it's not just document summary, although that's helpful. It's things like, um, you know, it's things like, underwriting digital assistants. Like we kind of touched on this, managing that huge amounts of data, taking care of submissions, inspection reports and maintenance data, ingesting all of that, summarizing it. And it's not that the underwriting assistant is going to make the decision, but like we talked about, it's all about making the expert better at what the expert does.
Yes.
So the underwriting assistant can summarize, hey, here is something that seems important and you should
It's
look
using
at
a
it.
drill. I use this a lot. It's using a drill over a hammer. You can use
Yes.
the hammer and still get the job done, but you need that drill.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's a big area where insurtechs are helping out. And one thing I'll also say is, so my colleague Keith Raymond just published a new report on Celent.com about, we call it the Gen AIoneers, like the pioneers. But it's an updated report. We've run it for 3 years. In 2023, 8% of insurers had Gen AI capabilities in production. In 2025, that's risen to 44%. So it's just really skyrocketed. And I think the other place insurtechs and solution providers really can help insurers is, this is a rapidly changing space where some capabilities are right now in the market ready for operation. Others are even more powerful and they're around the corner. And so just making those tools available and helping insurers kind of guide them towards case studies where they can have the highest impact. I think that's another fantastic rule where insurtechs, they can kind of live on the edge of tech in a way that traditional carrier IT organizations have a harder time doing. And so just giving carriers access to that technology, I think is a really valuable function that insurtechs have to play.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you. I will be the representative of all the insurtech and say thank you to you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So we did highlight on the problems. This is for everyone. If you want to see how MedML is solving these problems, please contact me. If you want to understand more on Celent and the insurance space and understand more on problems and solutions and what is happening in the insurance, please talk to Harry. He is available on LinkedIn. You can text me directly. I can connect you guys if ever. All right. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you,
Thank
Harry,
you.
for all the
You as
insights.
well.